Hi, we've got Ian Jinks with us today. He's a professional yacht captain, and his other job is a Yachtmaster examiner. So he's agreed to give us a few bits of his wisdom about that today. So, Ian, how did you get involved in being a Yachtmaster examiner, and what's your background with that?
Well, it's interestingly, I was first of all, I was an instructor for a number of years, and I'd been doing that for about 5 years, and that was like a full-time job as an instructor. And then I got invited to become an examiner, so it's a by invitation requirement. So yeah, and then so that was in 2005. So I've been doing this now for this will be my 16th year as an examiner.
Okay. So overall, what would you say you're looking for in a candidate when you conduct a Yachtmaster exam?
Okay, well, there's a number of priorities that are, and I have to, well, first of all, what I would say is that all examiners are different. So all examiners will have their sort of pet things that they are looking for. But I would assume that we're all on the same sort of lines of ensuring that the boat must be run safely by the candidate. And they need to be proficient in what they are doing, so their knowledge of the theory elements are strong, and also their practical skill is strong, and also that they have got excellent communication and delegation skills. And those sort of three core areas are sort of key attributes really that I'm looking for in a Yachtmaster candidate.
Okay. One of the questions we get asked quite a lot is about qualifying passages.
Okay.
Can you explain a little bit about those and why they're important to the RYA and you as an examiner, and how they make you or help you make your final decision on a candidate?
Okay. Well, there's candidates typically they either prepare they either provide a full log, such as an RYA log, which has got detail of all their passages that they've ever done. So they've got the variety of types of boats that they are that they've been working on. One of the things I see quite frequently now with a lot of super yacht candidates coming in is that they're detailing the mileage that they've done on various boats. But for me, it's the quality of miles that is also extremely important. So doing 2,500 miles across the Atlantic is not really the same as doing 2,500 miles when you're the skipper of your own boat, berthing on a day-to-day basis. So the quality of miles is quite important. But the 60-mile passages, 60-mile qualifying passages, there needs to be 5 of these, and 2 of them need to be as skipper, and 2 of them need to be at night. And for me, is that I'm not really necessarily looking for candidates to present all of the mileage on paper in terms of a written document about what they've done. But I do ask every candidate about their qualifying passages as skipper. So they should be able to at least tell me 2 passages which they've done, which are over 60 miles in length, with some description, because this was if they've genuinely done it, which is really why I'm asking them the question, if they've genuinely done it, is they will have a good understanding about what they did and a good memory, because it's going to be the first time they took the boat offshore. So for me, I mean, I'm casting my mind back now, so more than 30 years of when I did my qualifying passage as for my Yachtmaster, and I can remember sailing down the Solent, getting to the Needles Fairway buoy. I remember the wind was a southwesterly, force 4, and then I set off across the Cherbourg, and my course to steer was 178 degrees magnetic. So I mean, I can remember that because this was quite a big event. I was sailing across the channel for the first time as a captain. And yet I've got candidates who come to me who can't remember how far their passage is, and how much fuel they required. And so that sort of basic thing tells me that they really didn't do the passage. And that's where that makes me start to look at their experience a little bit more. So it's important that candidates come with genuine experience, so that they have an understanding of what is required to undertake an offshore passage, because that's what Yachtmaster is all about. It's not about driving the tender from the back of a super yacht to the port and back again. It's talking about doing an offshore plan where they're not following a super yacht, where they are capable of doing the whole plan. Classic examples are when I'm asking candidates about, particularly on motorboat candidates, is about fuel planning, where they don't have an understanding of what is required to ensure they got enough fuel. Most of them turn around and say, "Oh, it's okay, I have full tanks." Well, it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean they're going to make it to the other end. How much are they going to use? So it's those types of questions that I just need to ensure that they can be the right answers for.
Okay, so is it fair to say it's a bit like, you're forming your sort of overall, or not your overall, but your first impression from that little those qualifying passages, and getting a bit of a feel for the candidate from the beginning?
Yeah, it does. I heard from a few examiners, and I'm not sure if I'm the same, but they can pretty much make an assessment of a candidate within the first 10 or 15 minutes based on things they say, which really shows the examiner how much experience they really have. And then we can scratch away at the surface. And, examiners are excellent at finding weaknesses, unfortunately. So when the experience is light, and you can tell that by your initial questioning of the 60-mile qualifying passages, it's easy then to start to plug away at and to ask the right questions to explore that a little bit more. That's really sort of what I would need to say about that. It's just getting candidates to ensure that they have got the right experience before they join the courses that they do before doing the exam, because it's not the school's responsibility to ensure that the candidates are qualified before they book. Candidates, it's their responsibility to ensure that they have the right experience, the right prerequisites before signing up. But unfortunately, a lot of candidates don't take it seriously enough.
Okay. And apart from gaining this experience, is there any other prep a Yachtmaster candidate can do before any courses or training?
It's there's obviously there's a number of schools who do training courses specifically aimed at prepping people for the exams. I've been doing preparation courses myself. I started doing preparation courses back in 2000, and for me, I always used to start a preparation course with telling the candidates, I'm assuming you're already at Yachtmaster level. So I'm assuming your boat handling skills are there. I'm assuming that your navigational skills are there, your knowledge of the collision regulations, knowledge of buoyage, knowledge of weather. It's all there already. I'm here to show you the types of things that you're going to do during the exam and give you the skills to pass the assessment. So what I couldn't do in 5 days, or maybe if I'd had the theory course as well, is to teach the candidate the whole Yachtmaster syllabus in such a short space of time. I do feel a lot of candidates turn up to school with no preparation at all, with the excuse that they've been busy, and then expecting the school to force feed all this information in a very short space of time. And some of it's quite complicated. So things like course to steer, you either understand it or you don't. Secondary reports, you either understand it or you don't. And the collision regulations in particular take a considerable amount of time to learn. And I do feel that the depth of knowledge for collision regulations, for example, is way for thin. They know the lights and shapes. That's it. Sometimes not even that, and really needs a greater understanding of how the rules interact with each other. And I do find that particularly poorly understood. For a motorboat candidate, an easy question to ask is about safe speed. And I do expect candidates to understand Rule 6, and the knowledge is really weak. I don't often expect candidates, I don't expect RYA candidates to know the rules by number, but if they do stand out. And that's the truth. I've had an exam recently where, I had 4 candidates on the boat, and, when I'm talking about the rules, the candidate was straight away saying, oh, that's Rule 6, and he quoting it almost word for word. And I was just like, so I know that I don't really have to press that candidate on that knowledge, because he's showing me straight away that he's done a lot of prep. So obviously, I dig where their weaknesses are. If they show the strengths, I don't need to keep asking questions when I know that they're strong in those areas. So yeah, there's the simple things that people can learn about the weather, learn about the coal regs, learn about buoyage. All of that stuff is covered in the the junior courses, using that term correctly, hopefully, but if people know what I mean. So looking at the basic navigation and safety course, or central navigation and safety course now, the day skipper course, and then sort of Yachtmaster and Yachtmaster coastal level theory courses. If they've got all that knowledge in a tier, in the tiers coming up, then they've got a much better knowledge when they come to do the exam. But a lot of people, they skip the lower levels of the RYA scheme and come straight in at Yachtmaster theory, and they wonder why it's difficult.
Sure.
Yeah. So, the better candidates have done the whole thing, and you and I both know that.
Quick, not to be negative, but on the pass-fail decision, is there something you'd like to say that would, where you would have, what helps you make that decision, or what makes you make that decision?
Well, first of all, it's worthwhile the candidates having a look through the exam report form. And one of the things I would suggest to all instructors, all practical instructors, is at the beginning of the practical course, is just to have the RA practical report form with them, and just to go through the boxes that are on the form. And I'll just go through them. So we've got preparation of the boat and crew, passage planning, boat handling, pilotage, seamanship and boat handling, navigation chart work, IRPCS, meteorology, and overall ability as skipper. And what I have to do as an examiner is I have to complete a report form. It has to be quite detailed. And I start off every exam, and I've always done it the same, because it was advice to me when I became an examiner, is use the report form to tell the candidates what you want to do. So I would start off and I would explain the boxes and tell the candidates pretty much what I'm looking to write in my boxes at the end of the exam, because I really am genuinely turning up to try and get a fair result for the candidate. And it is, it's much more difficult for me to fail people, because as soon as if I fail somebody, I have to have a reason for that. Yeah. So I have to put that in writing. It has to be fair. It has to be described to the candidate. So I'm generally starting off with at the beginning of an exam with the candidates passed. Yeah. And I explained to the candidate, just give me nothing negative to put into any of these boxes. So if you're going along enough, so you can't navigate, well, that's a negative. And if you don't know the rules of the road, well, that's a negative, isn't it? And so it's, just got to give me positive stuff to put into the boxes all the way through. But the biggest box on the form is the overall ability as a skipper. And for me, there needs to be an overall performance. So if overall they're strong, but in a specific point, okay, they didn't get it quite right, but they had the basics, I'm more likely to sort of let it go. I mean, some examiners are really strict on that, and it's just like, well, okay, well, we didn't know that thing, so that's a fail. And but I do try to see that it's an overall assessment, and we're trying to get people to be, as long as I said, come back to my three things I talked about earlier. They need to be safe. I mean, we're not talking about that someone was doing something that was unsafe, because obviously that's never happened. And if they can't communicate and delegate, then obviously that's also impacts on safety. So, and then it's proficiency, but proficiency comes with proficiency and experience. They sort of come together. So if there's a weak area, which, well, maybe there's a little bit of work to do there, but it's sort of a bit of a pass with a bit of a sort of telling off type thing, then that's okay if it's in small doses. Yeah. However, the RYA are specific on a few points, and that is, for motorboat candidates, their diesel engine knowledge needs to be good, and if it's not good, because we don't have the option to put up sails and sail our way out of trouble, if it's not good enough to be able to do basic fault finding, basic repairs to an engine to be able to get them home, it's a fail. And that's been instructed by the RYA, and has been for a long time. And for sail candidates, accidental jibe or instructing a course change, which would cause an accidental jibe without informing the helmsman, would also be an automatic fail. So those are some prerequisites from the RYA. And in non-tidal areas, for example, in the Mediterranean here, south of France, I have to see candidates do: course to steer on paper and a secondary report, because I can't assess it practically because we don't have any current. So that's yeah, that's those things I have to do, and that's yeah, those are the sort of key things that that sort of lead towards my pass fail, really.
Sure. So, you know, a candidate is during an exam does feel they've messed up in one area. Is it fair to say they should just put that to one side and do better in other areas? Because it's the overall ability you're really looking at.
It is an overall ability. I do quite often tell candidates that when I did my Yachtmaster exam sail, which was a while ago, during the exam I went aground, and I'm quite open about that. We were doing blind navigation, especially on a 5-meter contour, and I was down below with all the curtains shut, you know, the usual scenario, and you know, we went aground, and we didn't go aground very hard. We were under sail, we were sailing very slowly against the current, and one of the other candidates on the boat, he put his head down and said, "Oh, we're aground." I'm like, "Stop messing me about. We're on the exam, you know." And then the examiner said, "No, you really are." But I came up on deck, and you know, I'm mortified. You know, I'm thinking, "Christ, I failed." And you know, but you know, I just said, "Okay, well, let's get the boat heeled over, and let's get all our crew weight this side. We back the sail, we back the head sail." And the examiner said, "Where's deep water?" So I was over on my port side. So you know, I started, you know, got the boat off, and I carried on. But inside, I was thinking, "Oh, failed." And at the end of the exam, I was actually quite surprised. The examiner said, "Oh, you passed." I was like, "Oh, how?" After, you know, going aground, he goes, "Actually, the way you dealt with it was very strong, because you didn't panic. You know, you just got it off. You dealt with it." And it was so how I dealt with that kind of emergency. That's how you want to word it. Was it actually became a strength. And so I do tell candidates, when something goes wrong, I say, look, I do say, put that behind you. Let's carry on. Some people can either do that or they can't. But I do start most exams actually by saying, you know, things do go wrong. You know, I've had people drive off the dock with their power cable still attached, and you know, so, you know, not getting after back in to go and take it out. You know, it's just like early parts of the exams, people are very nervous, and I do make allowances for this. So the first hour of the exam, I'm quite often drinking lots of tea, you know, and you know, just not really paying too much attention to what's going on with the sort of less of a critique. I'm just letting people get their nerves out of the way before I really start to assess. Yeah. Because, as I said, because people are super nervous at the beginning of the exam. It's something they've worked very hard for. They've committed a lot of time, they've committed a lot of money, and it's important to them. So they put themselves under an awful lot of pressure. They don't need it from me.
It's one of the things we say to candidates is the exam is the length of time it is. So you do have chance to settle into your role as skipper, and it's not all over before you've sort of calmed down and relaxed. So.
Exactly, and it's I mean, you know, for me, it comes down to candidates being prepared. So the more that they are prepared, before they turn up to the school, the easier this exam is, because it's a bit of a shotgun effect. I can't examine every single element of the Yachtmaster knowledge, the Yachtmaster syllabus. I just don't have the time. So I will scratch at the surface, and you know, if the immediate response back to a question is extremely in depth from the candidate, I'm very unlikely to continue probing in that specific area. If they're showing, you know, very, very comprehensive knowledge, bear in mind, you know, I'm not prepping them on what I'm going to ask them. So, if I ask somebody some collision regulations questions, if they come back to me with a very, very thorough answer, you know, okay, so that might be a day shape, and or you know, what would you do in this situation? And I quite often use models, and if they're hitting me with, well, this would be rule 15, and I'd do this, and I'd do that, and he would have that, and I'll do that sound signal, and it's just a complete comprehensive answer, and there's nothing else for me to ask. Then, well, okay, well, I might ask him some night lights, but you know, how much does this guy know? Probably a lot, yeah. So, and maybe there's some casual questions during the exam, or if I see other boats, which is again not very common down here during the winter. But it's you know, they're showing to me they've got thorough knowledge, yeah. So the guys who have very thorough knowledge, they might come away from the exam going, "That was really easy. The examiner didn't ask me anything." Well, it's only easy because the questions they fired back at me was their responses were so good that I didn't have to start asking them 20 questions. So the weak candidates, when you ask them the first question and it's really the first answer back is either wrong or, it's just a very superficial answer, then I have to back it up. I have to go in and ask more questions, or then I explore it from a different angle. And it's very easy to see that there's no depth of knowledge there, and there's no experience. So that's where a well-prepped candidate will fare much better, and the exam will appear much easier to them. It's what they put in. So it's simple advice, really. The problem is with studying is that, for me, is if you try and cram it in a very short space of time, it's very hard for them to retain. And as soon as they're under pressure, it's not in their deep memory, it's in their surface memory. And then as soon as they've got to do something else, they just can't retrieve it. So for good candidates, they've studied for a long time, and things like, there's no excuse to not know voyage before you turn up for doing an exam. None. There's no excuse for it. Yeah, you don't need a school to tell you how to identify North Cardinal. You really, if you don't know basic identification, you're going on the wrong course. Yeah, so all that needs to be tucked away before they turn up, and all the identification of all the lights and shapes needs to be done before they arrive at the school. And then when at the school, then the school can maybe give some of the intricacies of how the rules interact with each other. But yeah, they're just good candidates. Just have it all prepared before they turn up. Bad candidates haven't driven a twin-engine boat, and they've got to be taught how to drive, as well as how to navigate, as well as how to identify buoys and how to do the coal regs and weather. And it's a fail, isn't it? Because they can't learn it all in such a short space of time. So it's hard. That is one of the points actually that is not done very well, is weather. And most candidates that when I ask them about weather, it's their first response is, I use windy. And it's a great tool. Let's not lie, but it can't be their only knowledge. It can't be their only source. And for a lot of candidates, it's their only way that they find any weather information. So they don't know how to interpret synoptic charts very well. Even just basics of like wind direction around a low pressure northern hemisphere, or you could even make it a little bit more complicated for an offshore candidate and give them a southern hemisphere question. They're just lost. So it's but weather's there. It needs to be understood by Yachtmaster candidates. Even talking about niche shells, which is something that affects everybody down here, and candidates should really know that. They should really know, what is quite a potentially dangerous weather phenomenon we have down here in the Med, and they don't know what causes it, and they don't know the signs to look out for, and they don't know where's going to give protection, and it's because it's all dealt with by the master of the boat, and they are not. They are cleaning it. So they just need to, before attending the exam, they need to think more like a captain, and think more like, well, I'm the guy who's responsible for this boat, and if I was doing it, this is what this is where I put the boat. This is my decision making process. So, sure. Yeah, there needs to have that little change in their mindset before turning up to an exam, like Yachtmaster offshore in particular, because it's a command license and not another cleaning license.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, any final bits of advice, but perhaps that could be a quick sum up of your final bit of advice. Start thinking like a captain, or.
Yeah, exactly. I think start thinking like a captain. Communicate like a captain. It's delegation. On during an exam, it's very easy for candidates to think, okay, I'm doing the exercise, so I've got to be driving. I'm on the wheel. Yeah. Even when I'm on my boat now, is that, okay, I might take the boat off the dock, but the mate will take it out the harbour, and if I can, and the conditions are right, the mate will take it off the dock, and I'm in a more supervisory role, and I'm on a small boat, Yeah, I'm only 36 meters, but you know, I haven't got 5 bridge people, you know, so it's not a 100-meter boat. So it's having that, taking that step back. And a lot of exam candidates, they're trying to do the navigation, and they're trying to do the driving and do the navigation and look at the radar. And obviously they can't really do all those things at the same time. So the candidate needs to step back, be in charge of it, have somebody who's driving, have somebody who's, you know, taking the bearings for them. And they just assimilate all the information and just confirm that the plan is going their way, because their job is to make sure that the plan is happening. And if they're doing that, they're demonstrating they've got good command skills and they've got good delegation skills, and they can pull it all together and, you know, keep the boat on track. And that's one of the key things that I'm looking for. Say they go offshore and it's a long passage, and let's say 60 miles. Let's say something that's more than 12 hours, for example. And then so people are going to need to eat during that time. Well, if you've left port and you haven't taken any food with you, you're going to soon have a few complaints, you know. So it's I'm certainly looking at that candidates, you know, just sit there. They're kind of almost like waiting for the chef to turn up, you know. So there needs to be an aspect that they are when I turn up to the boat, I'm not the captain. They are in charge of it. Yeah, the candidates are in charge of the boat. I'm there just to see what they can do, and I ask them to do certain tasks. Yeah, but they should be thinking about those things. They should be thinking, what time should we break for lunch? What time should we put the kettle on? Yeah, think about it. You know, rather than it always coming from the examiner. Yeah, think like a captain. So, you know, it's enough fuel for the boat and enough fuel for the crew. You know, they've got to be eating and drinking and not alcohol, but, you know, water and whatever else that people need. But they need to have that whole encompassing thing that's nothing kind of gets forgotten, because, you know,
I think that's been really useful, Ian. You know, I think anybody that's thinking of going for either Yachtmaster coastal or offshore is going to find your points there really, really very helpful.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak to me, because it is for me. I do want candidates to be successful, and you know, I've been trying for a number of years now to convey as much information over to schools to ensure that the candidates are prepped, because there's nothing worse for me than, you know, 4 people turning up and, you know, and we just.
I always tell our candidates that, you know, really the examiner wants to come along and pass you, and all you've got to do is help him make that decision. So.
Yeah, and it can be so easy. You know, the exam can be very, very easy. You know, some candidates, you know, within an hour or 2 hours of the exam, that's a definite pass. Yeah, to the point where actually almost you don't want to ask them to do anything else, so they don't make a mistake, because they've just been so good. Mm-hmm. You know, another candidate is thinking, Christ, this is going to take, you know, I've got to really go the distance here, just to give them every opportunity to show that they can do it, because they start off with very poor knowledge. And you know, I just hope that people take on board what you're saying, and you know, and do understand that I do want to pass people. You know, it's much nicer at the end of an exam to go, you know, congratulations, I'm going to recommend you for a pass.
So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found Ian's tips useful. If you'd like to find out more about the Yachtmaster preparation courses we offer, then please have a look at our website, and feel free to drop us a line with any questions. We also offer the RYA Day Skipper theory and practical courses that Ian mentioned as preparation before your Yachtmaster. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to our channel, you get all the latest updates on the videos we're producing about boating in the south of France. Thanks very much.